So today I want to talk to you about the ways that veterinary clinics communicate. I was just talking to an owner, and while this is geared a little bit more towards leadership, listen, if you're an employee, I'm going to give you some pro tips on things you should and should not tolerate from your employer. So first and foremost, you should have a communication plan. The reason why this particular individual was talking to me about the way they were communicating is because they set up a social media app. There's a lot of different social media apps out there that you can utilize internally. It's just for your hospital. And they very much are kind of like a Facebook Messenger type of thing. And you can have different, communication threads. And they seem all well and good until they get derailed very quickly. And so this person was asking me, what is my opinion on the way to communicate with their team? And the reality is most hospitals don't have a good way to communicate with their actual team. So I want you to develop a communication plan because not everything needs to be communicated here and now. If you are an employee, I know you agree with me on this. There's plenty of you employees where you just kind of get numb to the amount of things that your employer or your manager or your boss sends you on a daily basis. It's overwhelming. Hey, we need someone on this shift. We ran out of this. We need to do this. Constant communication. Does it really need to be communicated right here and now? Is it an emergency? Probably not. And so we have to start figuring out how to streamline communication. Does it go out in a weekly newsletter? Does it only go out certain times a month? What does this look like so that we set the expectation so employees go, oh, on Monday, I'm supposed to look at this document that has all the things that are important for the week that might have changed from the week prior. That is called streamlining communication. And then we decide what kind of communication we want to pick. Do we want to pick email, text messaging, or, a social media app? Now, again, social media apps are very good, but if you're going to implement one into your hospital, there needs to be rules and regulations. What is getting used? What can be said? Really, what is the goal of this social media app? If it's just constantly to network and goof around, that's one thing. But if it's actually to streamline communication, that's completely different. And then we have to look at email. Now, the safest thing to do, arguably, is just to pay for a business email account. That is through Google typically, or even Microsoft. There's probably a couple out there, but those are the big two that are in the United States. And again, there might be more where you're located. The reality is if you own the actual email system where you have a business suite, you then own the emails. And that makes way more sense because I struggle with hospitals or employers that are constantly bombarding other individuals' personal email addresses with work-related content. It's not my job for you to be able to email me through my personal email. That's not okay. And now I'm taking my time and it's in my personal email box to have to respond to my employer. It is always safer as the employer to own the email addresses. And so a lot of these email addresses come with extensions that you can create. For example, Amy at Happy Paws Veterinary Hospital. That can be the email address. And then when Amy decides to leave Happy Paws Veterinary Hospital, that email address is terminated. But here's the other thing. And as an employee, employees hate knowing this, but it is important. You own the emails. Therefore, you have every right to look at what is being said through email chains in employees' email inboxes. That's right. If your employer owns your email address, they have every right to check your email whenever they want to. Now, most employers are busy. They don't have time to do that. But should you suspect that an employee is failing or maybe manipulating the system or even giving away your data, you have every right to look at that. You're never going to know that information if you are just utilizing their personal email addresses. So I am a big fan of email actually as the main form of communication because it's trackable as long as you have a business account. And then lastly, text messages. Let's face it, this is probably a great way to communicate if we have in the moment needs, like someone is called out or there's some crisis that's happening. But I do not want to be bombarded by my employer constantly with text messages. It's my personal account, and unless you're paying me to look at text messages coming through every nanosecond, I'm not going to do it. And I know that sounds really almost like stuck up or pretentious. And some of you are saying, but Amy, it's 2024. You have to do these things. Nope, not unless you're getting paid. And so the reality is I think more and more employees are pushing back on the ways that we are communicating. So if you don't have a communication plan in your hospital, here's the key points. 1, Get one. I need you to write it down and decide what needs to get communicated and when it needs to get communicated. Number 2, what type of platform are you going to use to communicate to your employees? This is really important. Think about some of the things that I said. There's no perfect solution. There's also no terrible solutions as long as they're utilized correctly. Number 3, have sort of systems and rules and processes in place, especially if you decide to use a social media app internally into your hospital. Thank you so much, and I hope this helps you in communicating.